Hello everyone, welcome back to Marvelous Video. Today, we are looking into 10 of the most controversial movies that are so disturbing that you will start wondering how such movies are even allowed to exist. Prepare to be disgusted. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Salo, or the 120 Days of Sodom. The Republic of Salo in 1944 was a fascist regime. 4 powerful men of this Nazi empire, the bishop, the magistrate, the duke, and the president, decide to host a ritual of debauchery. They hire 4 young boys as guards and 4 young men as soldiers. Based on the size of their phallus, they also marry each other's daughters, making a rule that they are not allowed to wear clothes at their mansion. Soon, they send out the SS to round up 9 teenage boys and girls and imprison them. They are also joined by 4 female collaborators who are responsible for maintaining interludes between their horrific session. The 4 powerful men rape, torture, and abuse the 18 young victims and the 4 daughters. Between these reprehensible acts, the 3 female collaborators tell stories while the 4th one, a pianist, plays for them. Anyone who tries to escape is brutally killed, and by the end of 120 days, all the victims, including the daughters, are murdered. The pianist, unable to comprehend the cruelty surrounding her, commits suicide. The soldiers remain unaffected and bid a joyful farewell as they leave. The Republic of Salo, inspired by Marquis de Sade, 1785 novel, The 120 Days of Sodom, is a truly reprehensible film. Not even their own daughters are saved from the savagery of the noblemen. The atrocities that are carried out on the victims are unimaginably violent, and even describing them for you is a task that is making our skin crawl. It is no wonder that in many countries, this movie is still banned. The Human Centipede 2. Movies often inspire people and help them change for the better. But what if people are inspired by a really weird movie? Martin Lomax, unfortunately, is obsessed with The Human Centipede, a film where a deranged scientist sews 3 people together from mouth to anus and plans on creating a 12-person human centipede. His mother, a resentful woman who blames him for his father's incarceration, finds out about this and tells Martin's therapist, Dr. Sebring. However, Dr. Sebring brushes it off, telling her that it's just a phase. Martin, however, is determined to achieve his goal and acquires a warehouse by killing its owner. He then kidnaps 2 girls and a couple. Back at home, his mother tries to throw away his pet centipede, which angers him so much that he kills her. He also kills Dr. Sebring, who is abusing him, and kidnaps 7 more people to complete his centipede. One of his victims is Ashlyn Yenny, the actress who starred in The Human Centipede. Martin is not skilled in surgery, so all he can do is use duct tape and staple guns to create his human centipede. He accidentally kills one of the victims and assumes another one, a pregnant woman, is dead. So his final centipede only has 10 people. While Martin is enjoying his final product, the pregnant woman regains consciousness and escapes. Martin tries to follow her, but gives up when she drives away in a car. When he returns to the warehouse, he finds that his centipede has halved. So he begins shooting and kills all of them. In the end, Martin is shown watching the movie again, making us wonder if he will go on another kidnapping spree to create a new human centipede. The movie is best watched on an empty stomach, as you will definitely risk emptying it. Shockingly enough, the movie was initially shot completely in color, as it was way too grotesque. It was later released in black and white. We can only imagine the damage the movie would do in color. The Last Temptation of Christ. The Last Temptation of Christ begins with the same story that is largely accepted to be the Son of God. Jesus is born to Joseph and Mary in Judea. He preaches a message of love and peace and saves Mary Magdalene. He acquires disciples, performs miracles, and spurs Satan till Judas betrays him and hands him over to the Roman authority. Emperor Pontius Pilate rules that he must be put to death, as he is a threat to the Roman Empire. From here begins the blasphemous deviation. After his crucifixion, his guardian angel appears, telling him that although he is the Son of God, he's not the Messiah, and God wants him to be happy. The angel takes him to Mary Magdalene, and the 2 marry. After Mary's death, he marries the sisters of Lazarus, Martha and Mary of Bethany. Years later, on his deathbed, he meets all of his apostles again. While Jerusalem is burning in the throes of rebellion, Judas arrives and reveals that the guardian angel is actually Satan, who lured him away from saving the world. Jesus makes his way to his crucifixion spot and begs God to let him fulfill his divine purpose. Suddenly, Jesus finds himself on the cross once again. having repudiated his last temptation from Satan. Thanks to its major deviation from the Christian canon, this movie sparked a lot of controversy. Martin Scorsese, the director of this movie, received many threats from religious groups and, as a result, could only make public appearances with armed bodyguards. A theater showing this movie was set on fire, and many nations banned this movie. Even to this day, the movie is banned in Singapore and the Philippines. Audition. Shigeharu Aoyama has been a widower for 7 years, so his son, Shigehiko, and friend, Yasuhisa Yoshikawa, convince him to look for a new wife. Yoshikawa, a film producer, devises a fake casting call for young women to audition. Although he lures them in by promising them a TV role, they are all auditioning for the role of Shigeharu's wife. His attention is caught by Asami Yamazaki, who claims that she was aspiring to be a ballet dancer before some injuries prevented her from pursuing her goal. Yoshikawa is unable to reach any of the references she has listed, one of whom is a music producer who mysteriously disappeared. But completely smitten, Shigeharu pursues her anyway. They go on several dates together, and one day he decides to propose to Asami. He takes her to a hotel where she asks him to pledge his love to her, and he agrees. When he wakes up the next day, she is gone, nowhere to be found. Shigeharu tries to find her by going through her resume. He visits her ballet school, where he finds a man with prosthetic feet who had once tortured Asami by burning her feet. He then tries to find her at a bar she claimed to work in, but the building is abandoned, and he finds out that the owner was murdered and dismembered. Dejected, he returns home. Meanwhile, Asami has snuck into the house and has found the photographs of Shigeharu's dead wife. In a jealous rage, she kills his dog and poisons his liquor. When Shigeharu returns, he drinks the liquor and has hallucinations of Asami killing and torturing men. He wakes up from the hallucinations to find that he is paralyzed. Asami tells him that since he too has failed to love only her, he will be punished. The poison is a paralyzer that does not stop him from waking up and feeling. Asami begins torturing Shigeharu and is interrupted by Shigehiko, who just returned home from school. Asami and Shigehiko fight, and he manages to push her down the stairs and break her neck. Audition was screened at the Rotterdam Film Festival in 2000 and boasted a record number of audience walkouts. Though the plot might seem relatively harmless, the graphic hallucinations of Shigeharu and Asami's attack on his paralyzed body are nauseatingly horrific. Cannibal Holocaust, directed by Ruggero Deodato. Cannibal Holocaust was heavily inspired by the Italian media reporting of the Red Brigade's terrorism and Mondo documentaries of Gualtiero Jacopetti. This flick also paved the way for found footage cinema. An all-American film crew gets lost in the Amazon rainforest while shooting a documentary in 1979. The crew consists of scriptwriter Faye Daniels, director Alan Yates, and 2 cameramen, Jack Anders and Mark Tomaso. A rescue mission is undertaken by Harold Monroe, an anthropologist. Military personnel kidnap a young man from the local Yakumo tribe and hand him over to Monroe as a hostage to negotiate with the tribe. Monroe, with his guides, Chaco and Miguel, agrees to set the hostage free if he is taken into the Yakumo village. The tribe members reluctantly agree, and Monroe finds out that the film crew had disturbed the locals. Monroe gains the trust of a tribe that lives deeper in the rainforest, the Yanomamo, and they show him the skeletal remains of the film crew. Monroe gets the film reels next to the remains and returns home. Soon, networks begin asking Monroe to host a documentary broadcast of the obtained footage, but Monroe decides to review them first after learning that Allen has a reputation for staging scenes in his documentaries for dramatic effect. In the found footage, Monroe sees the crew shoot a Yakumo, kill the pet pig of a child, and then herd the natives into a hut before setting it on fire. The next reel shows them go deeper into the forest and meet a Yanomamo girl. They gang rape her and kill her while claiming that the tribe killed her for the loss of her virginity. Soon the natives begin retaliating. The crew is lost as the natives surround them, and every single one of them is killed and mutilated. After seeing the footage, executives order the reels to be burned. The terrible and bloody scenes in the movie that included sexual violence and animal cruelty were condemned by many moralists. There were some rumors when the movie was released that some of the murders were real, and Ruggero Deodato was charged with murder. This led many to claim that Cannibal Holocaust was a snuff film, but these rumors have remained baseless, and the only charge against Deodato with regards to this movie was against obscenity.
Or commerciality.
August Underground's Mortem. Mortem appears as a home movie shot by depraved serial killer Peter, his girlfriend Krusty, and her brother Maggot. It begins as Krusty sleeps with Maggot, which enrages Peter. But Krusty uses a glass shard to stimulate herself, which arouses Peter. They then break into a crack house and murder the owner. Their outrageous adventures continue as they torture 2 hostages they have kept in a box. After satisfying themselves, they wander out to the streets, where they kidnap, torture, and kill 2 women. The trio visits a serial killer next, who shows them the mutilated corpses in a shed. Their disturbing exploits end with the 3 of them breaking into a house and murdering a family, after which the movie cuts to static. Although a sequel to 2001's August Underground, the disturbing violence of this movie moved audiences to think that this was a snuff film. Co-director and writer of the film, Fred Vogel, was arrested in Canada with charges of transporting obscene materials. As he was caught with copies of the film, Australian customs officials, too, confiscated any copy of this movie that made it onto the continent. The Pipsy Tapes. In Poughkeepsie, New York, cops raid a house where they find 800 tapes recorded by Edward Carver, a serial killer. The tapes show him kidnapping, murdering, and then mutilating his victim. Though the cops have all the tapes, Carver has gone to extreme lengths to make sure he himself is not shown in any of the videos. Carver's first victim is an 8-year-old girl. When he's not caught after his first crime, he kidnaps a couple and murders them. He then kidnaps a teenager, Cheryl Dempsey, and her boyfriend Tim. He mutilates and murders Tim, but keeps Cheryl in his basement and abuses her. Carver also offers to help Cheryl's mother, who realizes that he is the culprit, but she just watches on in shock as he laughs at her and leaves. His crimes begin to attract attention, so Carver changes his MO. He begins targeting sex workers. While dressed as a cop, he steals the sperm of Officer James Foley from a fertility clinic and frames him for the murders. Although Foley pleaded not guilty, he was sentenced to death by lethal injection. The cops figure out Carver's address by reverse engineering his map search. They find and rescue Cheryl, but she's suicidal and malnourished. 2 weeks later, she dies. The post-credits scene shows Carver filming an abused woman, telling her that she'll be alive as long as she doesn't blink. As soon as she does, the video cuts to black. The movie unfolds like a documentary and was shot in 15 days. Written and directed by John Eric Dowdle, Poughkeepsie Tapes hold up a gory mirror to the depravity of humankind. A Serbian Film. A retired porn actor, Milos, enjoys a poor but quiet life with his wife, Marija, and 6-year-old son, Peter. His brother, Marko, a corrupt cop, envious of his brother's life, has a massive crush on Marija. One day, Milos' former co-star, Leja, offers him a job to star for an independent director called Vukmir. Milos agrees, only for the financial aspects of the job. On the first day of filming, he meets a young girl named Jeka, whose mother rebukes her for being a prostitute. Later, they film the mother and Milos having oral sex, while Jeka watches. Milos begins to have doubts about the film, so he talks to Marko, who assures him that he's in good hands, as Vukmir was a former psychologist. Vukmir shows Milos some of his previous work, a video of pedophilic form, which disgusts Milos, and he leaves. Days later, Milos wakes up bloodied and with no memory of what happened. He sees tapes near him and watching them. He realizes that Vukmir had drugged him. In this hazy state, Milos had killed, abused, and raped many people, including his wife and son. He had locked Marko with Marija and Peter. Milos frees them, and they decide that they should all die as they kill themselves. A film crew walks in ready to make more necrophilic porn with themes of pedophilia and necrophilia. It is a true wonder that this film has only been banned in 7 countries. Irreversible. Written and directed by Gaspar Noé, Irreversible is about a young woman named Alex. Alex, her boyfriend Marcus, and her ex Pierre head to a party where they all get drunk. Marcus begins to take cocaine, which annoys Alex, asking Pierre to look after him. Alex heads out. She heads into a pedestrian underpass where a transgender prostitute is being raped by a man. As Alex sees them, the man immediately attacks her and rapes her. Marcus and Pierre see Alex being carried away in an ambulance and begin to look for revenge. 2 street criminals, Morad and Lade, offer to help them, and together they find the prostitute, whose name is Concha. Concha tells them that the rapist is a regular at BDSM clubs and is called Latanya. They head to the club and grab hold of the first man they suspect to be Latanya. The man denies it, attacks Marcus, and tries to rape him. Pierre comes to Marcus's rescue and kills him with a fire extinguisher. As the real rapist watches them in amusement, Marcus is carried out by paramedics, while Pierre is arrested. The violence and rape scenes of this movie are outrageous and caused a lot of audiences to walk out at the time of its release. While some praised Noé's direction, many are staunch critics of the unwatchable brutality. Psycho. The last movie on this list, and possibly the tamest one, is Psycho. Master of horror, Alfred Hitchcock adapted Robert Bloch's 1960 novel of the same name into this blockbuster. Marion Crane, a secretary, steals $40,000 from her employer to get married to her boyfriend Sam Loomis. As she heads to Sam's house in Fairvale, she's interrupted by a rainstorm and decides to spend the night at Bates Motel. The owner of the motel, Norman Bates, invites her to dinner with him in the motel's office. Marion hears him arguing with his mother, but doesn't say anything about it. Norman complains to her about his mom, and Marion suggests institutionalizing her, to which he gets greatly offended. Marion heads back to her room and decides to return the money. While she's showering, a shadowy figure enters and kills her. Norman checks her room the next day and finds the body. He gets rid of her corpse and all of her belongings. Marion's sister Lila confronts Sam about the stolen money and demands to know where Marion is, but Sam denies knowing anything about it. Milton Arbogast, a private detective investigating the missing money, approaches them. After realizing they don't know anything about Marion's disappearance, he retraces her path and stops at Bates Motel. He becomes suspicious about Norman's behavior and asks to speak to his mother. Norman disagrees to let his mother be seen, but Milton sneaks up to his house, where he assumes Norman's mother is. A shadowy figure attacks him and kills him too. Lila and Sam begin their own investigation. As they don't hear back from Milton, they find out that Norman's mother died a decade earlier. They drive to Bates Motel to find out more. Sam distracts Norman as Lila sneaks up to the house, but as Norman is suspicious of Sam, he knocks him unconscious. In the house, she finds the mummified corpse of Norman's mother and screams. Norman, now dressed like his mother, rushes in to stab Lila, but Sam wakes up in the nick of time and saves her. They subdue Norman together and hand him over to the cops. A psychiatrist later explains that Norman's love for his mother was so great that he grew jealous of her lover. He had murdered them both in his jealousy, but his guilt had set in, which led to him adopting the alternate personality of Mother. Psycho broke many barriers in 1960, as the movies all conformed to a sanitized and safe version of storytelling, from the lead female characters wearing revealing clothes to the transgressive subject matter. The movie raised many eyebrows. Although many countries went out of their way to censor this film, it is not banned anywhere. After all, Psycho is still considered a milestone in Hollywood and a masterpiece by Hitchcock. Marvelous verdict. So, these were all the disgusting and disturbing pieces of media that gained much controversy at the time of their release. Viewer discretion is not just advised for these, but is mandatory. Which one of these movies do you consider the most controversial? Let us know in the comments. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.